Third time's the charm? For many bands that we love and respect today, it wasn't success right from the debut. In fact, it wasn't even the second time around. It took 3 albums to truly break through and become a big deal. In today's music world, that's less likely to happen because if a band does not connect on a debut, labels, radio, the industry just moves on and leaves a band in the dust. This video looks at 10 groups who stuck with it and whose third album was their breakout. This video was not a top 10, just a list, not ranking by favorites, but instead chronologically. That way you know why I ordered them that way. Also, there are many great third albums like Master of Puppets, Dookie, and White Pony that I've already talked about at length years ago. Those definitely qualify, but I want to talk about some albums that I haven't done a dedicated video for. If you want to check out those, they're in the video description. Thank you for checking this out. Please subscribe, it does help a ton. You know how these videos work. Let's get to it. Let's start off with metal legends that helped carry the new wave of British heavy metal. Everything at the time for Iron Maiden was riding on the hopes of a new vocalist, but lucky for Iron Maiden, that new vocalist was Bruce Dickinson, and he would help pilot the Number of the Beast to clear skies. No disrespect to other Iron Maiden singers through history, but the Number of the Beast is just one album worth of proof that Bruce was the best person at the front of this style of music. Hearing Run to the Hills was the breakthrough for Iron Maiden to a global scale, and the reception was almost unanimous. The album went to #1 on UK charts and the critical reviews were glowing. Iron Maiden became a powerhouse and the next metal legends were more than ready to fly forward. Steve Harris had proven himself as a genius songwriter, and it's the everlasting proof that bassists matter. While it's Iron Maiden's third album, there are many who disregard the original 2 albums, Killers and the self-titled with Paul. That's unfair as they definitely have a strong base, but Iron Maiden doesn't continue to the next level without the Number of the Beast. Move forward a bit with thrash taking over in the US metal scene. Araya, King, Henneman, Lombardo, these 4 became thrash royalty and proved they can stand toe-to-toe with a name like Metallica, and in turn prove just how popular a band can become while still being as heavy as possible. Can you imagine Slayer without Rain and Blood? No? Well, that might be the best example of how important it was for Slayer's third album to make it big. Timing was important, but the performance was equally as necessary at a time where thrash was standing out. Slayer made lifelong, obsessed, psychotic fans in 1986. The post-mortem Rain and Blood combo and Criminally Insane made sure Rain and Blood would last forever. It was also another thrash album to get wide critical acclaim, and that's impressive as this was the style that was not everyone's thing and was a deep target of satanic panic and Slayer being evil, or seen that way. Maybe that helps Slayer stand out also, but if Rain and Blood wasn't the live wire that Slayer was capable of making, I don't know if Slayer would have lasted so long in the metal zeitgeist and pop culture. Not everyone is a thrash fan, but everyone knows Slayer because of this album. One of my favorite grunge albums ever and a timeless testament to just how incredible Chris Cornell was. Badmotorfinger was one of the 1991 block of albums that changed heavy music forever. Soundgarden in turn became one of the grunge big 4, and the band and album is still highly cherished grunge. I have always felt that Badmotorfinger should be held in the same discussion as Nevermind and 10 for the top grunge classics for just how strong each track comes off. Badmotorfinger is loud and vibrant. It shows off the talent of each member several times over, and the anger and raw power is amazing. In 91, Jesus Christ Post shook everything up and then outshined and Rusty Cage launched Soundgarden into the stratosphere. Along with opening for Guns N' Roses in 91, Soundgarden started getting consistent MTV attention. Badmotorfinger was another Terry Date classic as well, proving how much Date has given to rock. Soundgarden's third full length was another example of bringing your best, and it shined at the perfect time when the music scene was changing. Love Badmotorfinger, love Soundgarden, love that they were actually going into the ridiculous Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year. It actually happened. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame got it right. Time to go a bit DIY with the Offspring, who at the time were on a bare-bones budget from an independent label with Epitaph. Smash was the type of explosion for a punk rock band who were fitting what punk could be into the perfect 90s alternative slot, and the Offspring became household names because of Smash. I mean that also. Smash was what drove the Offspring into homes and blasted on radio with a style that wasn't completely grunge. In 94, the Offspring nailed it with Come Out and Play. It was accessible to everyone and the perfect hook while exposing new listeners to a sound they weren't familiar with. Self-esteem and Gotta Get Away also carried their weight in prolonging Smash's shelf life at local music shops, which only helped the Offspring further in growing with the punk and pop punk and skater lifestyles in the 90s. With $20,000 to use from the label and 2 months to work on an album, the Offspring used their noodles and got it done. People argue if this is the Offspring's best album, but in my mind, this is the Offspring's breakout and what kept the fans going through years of recent material, and as the years have gone on, turning the Offspring into a dad band. Though they always were a bit of the jokesters, even with Smash, so it does kind of fit. We should have seen it coming. Some will argue about Science as the breakout album for Incubus, but in my mind, the band truly stood out in the mainstream and became a legit big deal in '99 with Make Yourself. This was the album that had something unique to offer in a world filled with nu metal and post-grunge. Neither nu metal or post-grunge really nailed down all the things Incubus was doing either. When Pardon Me started getting played on radio and then got tons of airplay on cable and even sports channels and WWE were using it, that led Incubus to being a huge band. Then, Stellar and Drive happened. Stellar showed off more what Incubus could do, and then Drive became the song you always heard on the radio every time you turned it on for 6 months. Make Yourself launched Incubus to stellar heights, and with a ton of charting success and swooning for Brandon Boyd, Incubus became huge. This was also the Dirk Lance era of bass in Incubus, which was amazing and added a lot of identity to the group. I do wonder how Incubus would sound today if he was still somehow with Incubus, because Make Yourself is a great time capsule of alt-rock and alt-metal that was not the norm in '99, and I mean that in a great way. The rated R fans will complain about this one, but in my view, there is no arguing that Queens of the Stone Age became legendary for many with Songs for the Deaf, and it was the right combination of several styles from big names contributing to music that was not being pushed in 2002. There were many more people involved in performing on Songs for the Deaf than most realize. It goes past Gabe Grohl on drums, but also the several connections to A Perfect Circle and Screaming Trees. This entire album had so much talent involved, and I think it was impossible not to blow up. Songs for the Deaf had several tracks that became staples of rock radio for years, and the album is still held as one of the best releases of the 2000s in all music. Pitchfork even said it was one of the top 200 albums of the 2000s with a 7.9 out of 10. I love how Pitchfork has to contradict themselves because Songs for the Deaf is so great. I'm pretty sure I can turn on an alt-rock FM station now and have a chance of hearing Go With The Flow within 20 minutes. The music from Queens of the Stone Age is held up, and the live shows have been a unique spectacle, and everyone started paying attention with Songs for the Deaf. This entry is going to be a bit more United States based, as Muse was already making waves after Origins of Symmetry, but in 2003 people lost their minds when Time Is Running Out started getting attention. Absolution proved Muse was not a one-hit wonder in the US. Absolution was many people's true introduction to Muse, and I don't know if I would have had it any other way. 6 released singles in less than 12 months, and every one of them, plus the other tracks, still hold up 20 years later. Without a ton of TV or cable help, Muse earned everything through radio hits and word of mouth. The later Black Holes and Revelations, which was massive, would not have been as strong if it wasn't preceded by Absolution. Also, the Absolution premiere was held at a planetarium in the UK and then at a Madame Tussauds. One of the best rock albums of the 2000s came to the world surrounded by creepy wax statues. Singles charted everywhere, Absolution got certifications in over 10 nations, and Muse set a high bar to cross, and that the band would rarely ever meet in later years. The third album stands as one of their best for good reason, because even Muse has trouble topping themselves in 2003. Emo would not be what it was without the pinnacle that was the Black Parade. 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge was amazing, but it was the Black Parade that made sure My Chemical Romance was known as the top-tier band that people are still crying their mascara off to while listening since 2006. It was a concept album that had a lot of mental breakdowns from the band members who made it, and just about everyone alive knows the title track from the opening piano notes. If that's not the instant mark of success, along with yelling about how awful teenagers are, then I'm not really sure what is. The Black Parade became a legend, and My Chemical Romance became a meme before the term meme even had meaning. The album was listed on many best of lists for both 2006 and just in general music over the years. Whether it was the music or those suits, we are still cheering on this parade. Even the worst of My Chemical Romance is still good, but the best of My Chem, being the Black Parade in my opinion, is untouchable and the perfect identification of a band's sound and visual. Also, I'm pretty sure if you go into any hot topic and yell "carry on," the employees have to sing along. Try it out and let me know. I don't think Ghost, even with the imagery and cheeky cult-like shenanigans, would have hit the top without the third Ghost album, Meliora, being as great and commercially successful as it was in 2015. This was the giant step up into the spotlight that both metal fans, festival goers, and elitists could not ignore. That was something big. As of writing this, Ghost just had the #1 album on the Billboard Top 200, a massive feat for any rock or metal band in 2025 that Skeletor had. Tobias Forge said in several interviews over the years that he always intends to write songs that are catchy, and Meliora was the perfect example of how to do that while keeping it in heavy music. From the Pinnacle to the Pit is a favorite, Cerise won a Grammy, and the world started getting entranced by the live performances. SiriusXM also pushed Ghost huge, which helped in the United States, as Ghost was also dominating Europe through festivals, and then would come and do huge things for Mexico. No joke, the biggest Ghost events really do happen in Mexico, with the fake religious iconography and onstage cult leadership changes, to put it politely. Meliora songs are still big hits in concert, and Tobias Forge figured out the right calculation for being catchy while still appealing to a heavy audience. 10 years later, and Ghost still runs with Meliora. There is hardcore, there are bands that switch between hardcore and metalcore, and then there is Code Orange, who dabble in many styles while destroying anything in sight. Forever was my favorite album of 2017, and what I truly think set Code Orange into the spotlight as a band that cannot be ignored. As of writing this, Code Orange is on a definite hiatus, and while that stinks, it does not diminish how far Code Orange has come after such a huge release in Forever. With little push for singles and an FM station shying away for it being too chaotic, online support became rabid, and the underground scene found its new hero. This was hardcore redefined and bursting with creativity while showing many different things everyone involved could create as opposed to other groups. Forever would lead Code Orange into big collaborations, working with WWE and becoming festival mainstays around the world. That is huge for a band that a few years prior were playing in basements and dive bars in Pittsburgh. I don't know what will happen in the future with Code Orange, but I do know that Forever still holds up as one of the heaviest and best overall albums of that year, and it proves the third album boost can happen to anyone. I hope this third album explosion can still happen for bands that are currently working, because so many groups put out a debut, then a follow-up, and then struggle for years without getting a truly big break. I have lots to say about Master of Puppets, White Pony, and Dookie in previous videos. Again, check those out. Let me know what you think is a good third album and truly helped a band get big. Finally, here's a dog. Ivan's being a good boy, chewing on his toys, sitting on his couch, watching TV, and just enjoying life. Ivan is not a fan of endless rain, which we've been having a lot of right now, so if he wants to tear up stuffed animals and not the actual couch, I'm just gonna support him in whatever he wants to destroy.